evening, witches. It is Valentine's Day, Valentine's evening. And if you're like me, your husband's been at work all day on a Sunday. So here I am on the internet talking with you guys. Or, maybe your husband's at home and you were just like, I'm going to go do this. Or maybe you don't have a husband. Or maybe you have a wife and she was like, what are you going to talk about? And you were like, lesbian witches. And she's like, okay, see you in an hour. Whatever your situation, thank you for joining us for A Hangout of Witches. We're here to discuss A Discovery of Witches Season 2, Episodes 5 and 6. This is our after show party, and it's a great big boozy time, although I'm having Topo Chico instead of alcohol. Because like I said, my husband's at work and has been at work all day. So I'm waiting to have Valentine's for whenever it is his ass gets home. I'm Beth. I'm the owner of the Cool Table, and this is our lovely panel. Everyone say hello. Heidi, you go first.
Hey guys, Heidi here. Valentine's Day is not a big thing at my house, so I spent it watching these episodes back to back, and I was feeling the romance. I loved these last 2 weeks. I know everybody has some differing opinions, but I loved these episodes. I'm excited to talk about them. How about you, Jana?
Yeah, say hi.
Hi, I'm Jana. We celebrate Valentine's Day the day after when all the candy and flowers are half off because, I don't know, it makes us happy. So my husband is downstairs taking care of our kids, and I am excited to talk about these episodes. There's going to be some fights, Heidi.
Probably so. It also makes sense to celebrate Valentine's Day if you feel like celebrating it at all the day after. Mm-hmm. Because it's totally arbitrary. All right, Lachey, say hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lachey, and happy Valentine's Day. My fiance is out in the garage watching whatever it is that he's watching. But he did get me some nice lingerie for today. And yeah. And that's about it. Good Valentine's Day. I've been gouging myself on chocolate covered strawberries. They are delicious. So.
I had an entire sleeve of Thin Mints for lunch. I mean, it wasn't Valentine's Day, but it was satisfying. So anyway, let's get into it. Hey to Brett and Emma and Shelly, everybody else that's in the chat. I see you. Say hello to us. If you're seeing this on Twitter, apparently we were trying to go live on Twitter as well. I think it's working. So I can see us. So yay for that. If you are a Twitter person, we're on Twitter now when we go live. I think that's super fun. I'm so excited about that. We've just been on Facebook and YouTube, and now we are also brand new on Twitter. Shelly just said, my husband is out of town working, so I consoled myself with 2 episodes of Purifoy. It was very comforting, James Purifoy, these couple of episodes. So let's get into it. I love that we're talking about these together. I realized that it was just because last week was the Super Bowl and that's important to some people, not me. Some of you are into it. I'm not. But I loved that they just went together really well. I think if we had just talked about episode 5, it would have felt really undone and unfinished, and it felt really short. And hey, Therese. And so this is a great couple of episodes to mash up. But let's get started talking about them. We start out with episode 5 on the shores of France with a little bit of Gallowglass, just the tiniest tip of Gallowglass. It's not enough, but he'll be back next week. But what did y'all think of our little glimpse of Gallowglass this week?
I thought his French accent was very bad. Other than that, I have no affinity or affection for him yet. I feel like it's going to come because everyone loves him. But other than that, I just see him and think like, oh, he has 2 legs.
I think he meant to have a bad French accent. It was on purpose. I think Stephen Cree even said so. He was like, yeah, he's Scottish. He doesn't know what he's saying. I thought it was interesting that he's very close to Diana. He gets really close to her. He's like, hey man, you need to watch Matthew for me. Don't lose him. I'm like, back up, bud. Back up. She's not yours. What'd y'all think?
Oh, I enjoyed him. Yeah, that closeness I mean, it's expected as a book reader. So no big deal. I just thought it was scenic and everything, and he dropped him off. He said, "I can't be in France," and he went on his way over to Bohemia, which I didn't even realize was a place until they started talking about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Was that a hint that he's gonna have unrequited love for Diana? Oh, that's so sad. Oh, yeah.
But the thing is, and this is a big spoiler, Gallowglass knows about Diana, obviously, from the 16th century, and he is charged with watching her throughout her life. Without Matthew knowing, and he is in love with her. Isn't that the saddest thing?
Oh, that just
That's
broke
what
my
I'm
cold
waiting
heart.
for. That is what I'm waiting for, is that part. But go ahead, Jenna.
Gallowglass, nothing against Diana, but Gallowglass deserves better than 400 years of unrequited love. I'm sorry, Deborah Harkness. You need to give Gallowglass a happier ending than that.
Does he fall in love with her in the 16th century, or is it as he watches her in the 21st?
Not sure it's ever quite, explained exactly when it happened. It's just, once they start talking about it, it's just like obvious. It's obvious. So
yeah, because it would make sense for him to be in love with her, as he watches her as an adult woman or something like that, even though he watches her as a little girl, which is very, Jacob and Renesmee. But for it to have happened in the 16th century seems a little odd. I don't feel like they spend enough time together, but maybe I need to reread that book. But I'm surprised no one noticed this. This is why I asked y'all about Gallowglass, even though he's in 10 seconds. He and Matthew have a now kiss moment. Like, as they're parting on the beach of France, they just put their foreheads together. And I was like, now kiss. Now kiss. But they didn't.
I must have missed that twice. Did not catch that. I mean, I would have been here for it, but I missed it.
Go back.
But see, most of the people that Matthew interacts with, he kind of has a way of saying goodbye to everyone. So it didn't, it didn't register. I'll see it the next time I watch it, I'm sure, now that you said it. But at that point, I was just like, well, he's so used to saying goodbye to people a lot, all the time, like just for what he does for Philippe and everything, that, it didn't even register.
Well, I look for queer baiting and gay characters wherever I can find it. So that's probably why I'm like, what? They're so close. When are they going to kiss? Never happens. So we have a short little bit in episode 5 of Kit and Louisa, and I want to get them out of the way. But Heidi, as a non-book reader, you have a look on your face like you're super excited. What did you think?
Okay, Louisa, I loved her. She was like finally a scary vampire. We haven't seen one of those in a while. She was just like out to have a good time. She said that's the second time someone called me a whore and just capped him. It was hilarious. I adored her. I liked how she was messing around with Kit and with his little emo moment, like, oh, did you love him? Oh, how sad for you. She's evil, and I loved it. She was great.
Girls?
That it didn't really make much of an impression on me. I found Louisa a little bit irritating. And I hope that whatever her and Kit are doing, that it pays off later. Because I don't remember. I've read the books, but I don't remember what they do. So if they were setting up like Louisa, Kit, Ruckus, that's great. I hope we see it play out. But I didn't quite get anything from their interactions or what the purpose of them was, I guess, because I don't remember.
I like the early introduction of her, and I'm looking forward to whatever comes next. I thought they were a lot of fun, just like this moment of just like, what, type and everything. And I cannot wait, for Matthew to realize that she is in London and to find out what she and Kit have been getting up to.
Yeah, I think that eventually they go back to London and then they are confronted with what Louisa and Kit have been up to. So it is going to have some kind of payoff, but not like a huge one. It's not like super explosive unless they change something from the book. I loved Louisa in terms of like what Heidi just said. She's shaking things up at least a little bit. Kit's super depressed, so depressed. And she brings in something that's like a little fun, a little different. And yes, bad vampire, 16th century vampire vibes is way more fun than anything that Matthew and Diana have been doing. So
I mean, talk about your unrequited love. I mean, Kit and his moping, man, yeah.
Yeah. Brett just said, I feel like Louisa and Kit have some level of simpatico vibe going on. They're both a bit off kilter, but Kit has a reason as a demon. Louisa's meant to be a little bonkers as well because she's Isabeau's daughter, sire, or whatever as well. But maybe without the blood rage, I can't remember.
Nope, she has it.
She does have it. You're right.
And they did say it in episode 6. They did include her as one of the ones that had it. So there's a reason that she is as crazy as she is.
Yeah. She's just full on eating a dude in the street. Just eating a guy. She just sucking him dry in the middle of the street. It's pretty fun. We should have stayed with him a little bit longer. I like that they just like giggle after they kill that guy and run away. It's a lot of fun. So I found Matthew and Diana in this episode's at first, they're like journey. They're going on this journey. Again, Outlander vibes, going on a journey on horseback, which always annoys me because I would prefer to not see the similarities. But it annoys me that they speak to each other so formally when it's just the two of them. Like, there's one time where she's like, oh, I wish the sexual revolution had happened. But then like Matthew's talking to her and he's like, I wish it wasn't so. And I'm like, why are you talking like that? Like, why aren't you just being like, I wish it could be different. I mean, why is he speaking so formally? I get he's a vampire. It's easy for him to fall into those patterns. And she's a witch who's probably trying to practice the lingo of the time. But it still would be good as a shortcut for what we're watching to be reminded that they're modern and that the anachronisms make sense. And they don't have enough anachronisms for it to be reminiscent of the fact that they're modern people. What do y'all think about that?
Not only do they not have enough to show that they are being modern, also didn't have enough to show that they're in love. Like, they don't have a lot of like shorthand, like, you're my person. It's all these big declarations all these time. These big, like, I will go to the ends of the world for you, but not like, you look really hot this morning. You know, that kind of thing. It's just none of that normal relationship building is being shown.
Yeah.
I agree. There didn't seem to be that level of comfort between them that you would expect between couples who've been together for several months now and are mated and together forever. And maybe I can see how with Matthew, like, he's so anxious about what's coming up and seeing Philippe again, but there seemed to be a real, even with intimacy, like a lack of emotional intimacy between them and like casual intimacy. That's how I read it, I guess.
I'm sorry, y'all. I kind of found this stretch of it a little boring. I know they were doing their best to show how hard they were being, Diana was being ridden to get there, and how it was hard on her. She fell asleep on horseback and all of that good stuff. But I thought, it's supposed to be very strenuous. And I don't know if it wasn't strenuous enough for me. I don't know if it was the chemistry or the vibe was off. I don't know, Matthew trying to be anxious getting to Septors, and Diana, reading that and playing off of that. And it was boring. I was ready for them to get there and for the action to really begin. So,
yeah. Emma just said they've only known each other for 2 months, which is true, but also they're magically mated. So you can kind of skip over we don't know each other well enough. We should have more intimacy. They should at least have a shorthand of how they deal with one another that goes beyond the big declarations like Heidi was saying. Brett just said,
and they're both from the future. So they know stuff and are used to interacting in a different way than what people would do in the time that they're in. So you would think that that would translate a little more.
Yeah. Emma said, why did it take so long for Matthew to give her the riding pants? And Shelley said she laughed out loud when she fell off the horse. So I think that this whole journey is a missed opportunity. Matthew is never in vampire mode. Like, they could probably run faster than they're riding those horses to get to Septur. She's about to fall off a horse. He's not hearing her heartbeat slowing down. He's not noticing, and he can't zoom over there and pick her up. They see a house burning down, and she's like, we should check for survivors. And he's like, no, there could be soldiers nearby. You're a vampire traveling with other vampires. Where is the shorthand for the fact that he is magically enhanced or that she's magically enhanced? It was just a regular journey in olden times. And that's why it feels boring, because it shouldn't. They should be zipping and zoodopping and just moving around really quickly.
Exactly. They're supposed to be moving to get there. You know, they should be racing, not cantering. I don't ride horses, so I don't know. But it just seems like they're just, riding beside each other and talking a little bit about, Isabeau and, different things like that. They're not racing to get there, even though they know Philippe is waiting, for that. Okay.
Dawn said, I had to rewatch 3 times when she was walked to the fire by Pierre. Shouldn't that have been Matthew? And then she had kind of an intimate convo with this random guy. Again, Pierre, another one telling him, don't lose Matthew. Where do they think he's going to go? What do they think is going to happen? It is still not clear. I get the blood rage thing. None of them are aware of the Pierre connection. None of them know that Matthew has this thing that he's worried about seeing. Not Pierre, Philippe. None of them are aware of that. Pierre's not aware of that. Gallowglass is not aware of that. Kit's not aware of that. But they're all telling Diana, don't lose him. What is this about? It still doesn't make sense.
So is Pierre not the vampire from their house in London?
He is.
Wait, who is Francoise is the girl?
Yes.
Okay. Because I thought that's who it was. And then maybe I got the name wrong. That was a weird conversation. I didn't quite see the point of it. And she kind of snapped at him at one point. Like, I get it, Pierre. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, that was rude. I don't mind her being rude. She's been traveling on a horse for a really long time. But I still don't understand the emphasis on that particular trope. If you're not with him, you're going to lose him. Gallowglass. All of them have said something to her about it. Doesn't make any sense. And it's not even something they would understand. I don't get it. I still don't get it.
I also don't get why they seemed scared of the escort that Philippe provided. Like, Matthew's supposed to be this big, powerful second in command. I mean, he's Philippe's son. What are these guys going to do to them? Really? Can't he tear all their heads off if he felt like it? Isn't that why they're all scared of him? Isn't that why she has to stay with him at all times? Because he's powerful and scary? I don't get it.
And see, at this point, are they not kind of, well, I know Pierre isn't, but aren't the rest of them kind of going, what is going on? This guy is not, something's not quite right. No one else is noticing this at this point. I mean, if he is being so, non-threatening or, shouldn't someone realize, wait, this isn't usually how he is. He's supposed to be Philippe's assassin, and
yeah,
you don't get that at all.
No. And I'm assuming that all of the soldiers / people in the chateau are not vampires. They are the people that I guess eventually become the villagers of Septur who know that they're vampires, but trust them anyway. So maybe it's not about, and that's why I just edited episode 2 for our podcast. By the way, guys, A Hangout of Witches is now on the Cool Table podcast. So if you like to listen, you can go do that. You should subscribe anyway, just so we have some more subscribers. But anyway, so I was editing episode 2 for that. And we were talking about how Karen was bringing up how Matthew was never afraid of Philippe. He was always in awe of him. And there was never a sense of fear that when he went back, that Philippe was going to do something to him. The fear was internal, that Matthew was going to have to deal with his own ghosts and his own demons about Philippe's death, and the fact that Philippe would suss it out, right? That Philippe would like figure out why Matthew is tortured at this moment. And he didn't want to have to deal with Philippe figuring that out. And he didn't want to have to deal with like his own personal thing. But it wasn't like a fear, a physical fear that he was in danger from Philippe in this time. So I still don't get the guard and all of that, or even kind of the tension when they first meet each other. I really feel like I need to reread the book, or like they just did a really bad job explaining what's going on. If anybody's in the chat and knows what this is, explain it to me.
I mean, there is the tension, and it's almost, well, I know that, like you said, Matthew's dealing with his own demons and, you know, what he reveals later in episode 6 and everything, what happened with Philippe's death and, you know, just carrying that guilt. You know, that is what he's mainly dealing with when it comes to Philippe, and just not even telling him. I think that's very hard for him, you know, because, like, as we see, Philippe wants to know. But I think a little bit of it is also the fact that Matthew hasn't been completely honest with Diana. Philippe, you know, spills the beans on that. I think that Matthew is trying to juggle so much. And the fact that he's seen Philippe again, probably for the last time, you know, just all of those feelings. And a little bit of alpha male as well, because I think he and Baldwin, you know, ended up taking over as the matriarchs of the family once Philippe was gone, and to have to revert back, you know, and everything is probably also weighing on him a little bit.
So I think that that's all correct. I still think it doesn't make sense for there to be a guard and for Matthew to be like, we should be worried about these people. And it doesn't make sense for them not to be like vampiring their way through the journey.
It makes sense if you're just a show watcher, because I don't have any of that baggage of needing him to feel sad about Philippe and all of his emotions behind it. I didn't need any of that. What I needed was the powerful, like timeless, he's been around since Greek or Roman mythology times, godlike vampire who they're coming to stand in front of, and she has to stand up for herself. So he should be scary to me. He should incite like awe and fear rather than like fatherly, you know, emotions, the way I saw it.
Good point. Good point. It is the show. But then I have this. Go ahead, Lachey. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Heidi, did he come off that way for you?
Yes, he was super creepy. Yes, he was super creepy. And he came across like, the only, like, I got thrown off a little bit because I feel like Isabeau looks a lot older than him. And so that threw me off a little bit. But he came across like, you just don't 100%, like how Matthew says he can't read him. I felt like I couldn't read his character. I felt like that was like, I thought James Purefoy played that very well. Like he was protective, but also kind of being a dick about it, but also handed her the keys. So he was somewhat welcoming. Like he just was playing all the angles at all the times, which I thought was clever.
Yeah, I agree about that. But here's when I told you that we were going to fight about tonight, here's why I was annoyed. Okay. So all that stuff is just dressing, the journey, whatever. Like she puts her leather pants that Matthew gives her, which is kind of sweet. He puts like a little baby's breath. I don't know what kind of plant that was on top of it. I'm sure there's a botanist somewhere that knows what it is. And they're going to be like, it's important because it means this, but whatever. She puts those leather pants on without going to pee. And then later when the servant gets her dressed, she gets up out of bed and starts getting dressed without having peed. I know that we don't need to see her pee, but I also don't need to see her get up out of bed and get dressed twice in 2 days without finding a chamber pot. It's unrealistic. It took me right out. Okay, but here's what I was irritated about James Purefoy and Philippe's entrance. So there's this big swell of music. They've made it to Septour. They're walking through the chateau, the same exact set that they've been in before, but now it's, a different century. And there's this big, tense music, and they're seeing the grate of his office or whatever, and they're walking through, and Philippe is there, and you can tell that Matthew's like tense seeing his father for the first time in so many years, and it's just this big thing, and his back is to them. And then the camera flips, it cuts, and you see Philippe's face before they do. Like it just shows him. And the music stops, and then it's just like all of the tension that should have been there should have been when he turned around and faced them. and you see Matthew see him, and you see Diana see him, and you see Philippe like take their measure. You should have seen Philippe taking their measure in his eyes the first time you saw his face. And instead you see this look. And the look he has is kind of like, it's a little smug. It's a little like, I've got their number already. But I would have rather seen that I've got their number already when he was facing them. It just lost some of its potency. And I just didn't like that directorial choice.
I didn't notice that, although it's very good. I did notice I expected more of a reaction from Matthew, like seeing his father's face for the first time in 170 years. So it felt like he just went straight to angry about, and I forget exactly what his and Philippe's first words are, but I just wanted like this moment where like he's seeing his dad, and we didn't get that.
And we got it with Kit. Remember, like when he sees Kit for the first time, there's this moment where Matthew Good is like, oof, like this is so special. And then he just steels himself to like go have a conversation with this dude that's in love with him. We didn't get it the same way with Philippe. It did kind of suck.
But I think that's a product of the show, because they haven't talked about Philippe in a way that has been very positive. It's all been like, oh, I'm going to tell your dad on you. And, oh, you're supposed to be doing this for your dad. Like they haven't talked about him in a positive way other than Isabeau in the past. And that was last season. So as a viewer, I had forgotten a whole lot about him other than what you guys have told me in these conversations.
Yeah. Brett has a good point. Father Hubbard sent the message to Philippe saying Matthew wasn't the same man. Maybe that's the reason why he sent the guard. Yes, obviously there are machinations all throughout everything that they do. And perhaps Philippe is concerned about those machinations. Also, for some reason, the vampires are super worried about witches bewitching themselves. And they're always into it. And Father Hubbard told him about a witch, and he's worried about enchantment. So the guard makes sense now. Thank you, Brett. That makes sense. Figured it out. This is why we have the conversations with you guys. If it was just us, it would be trash. Don said that was his makeup gift for turning her down the night before, the leggings, which is why he waited to give them to her. He was like a gift for not giving her the dick. So no penis, pants instead.
That lace up real tight. With the lace up real tight, at least she can't get those off real fast.
So she'll get a yeast infection and not want to have sex with him the next night. Perfect. He knew exactly what he was doing.
I mean, but she was so excited to get them. Like, oh my God, these are wonderful. Like, okay.
Could not wait for that UTI. It was just headed right up her hole. Can't wait.
Can we talk about the sex or lack thereof? Because I've been saying for the last 4 episodes, the lack of sex talk is so frustrating. And when it finally happens, it was very disappointing. It felt very awkward. Because
let's wait and talk about the episode 6's sex. The sex happens in episode 6. So
okay, so the
episode 5 sex where he turns her down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is like the first conversation they've really had that we've seen about doing it, and it came off as so awkward. She's talking really weird, like, then give yourself to me, and he says like, not now, not yet, and then it's just shut down. She turns away, and I'm like, if this is the first conversation they've had, and they've been sleeping in the same bed for months now, like either this has happened before and we haven't seen it, but she's getting sick of it, or like this is literally the first time it's ever come up and they still don't talk about it. She just rolls over. And knowing what happens in episode 6, him saying like, not now, not yet, when maybe he planned to never actually have sex with her, it makes no sense. So confusing.
I have a question about that. So yes, that scene should have happened probably a couple episodes ago, and then they could have kept trying, and that would have worked better, I think.
Yeah.
But is he not able to have sex with her because it's him? Because like Gallowglass is talking about, like, you'll see all the line of satisfied women, like follow the line of satisfied women to Bohemia. So they're allowed to have sex with people, but he can't because she's his mate, or he can't because it's Matthew? What's the difference?
It's Matthew. Matthew is choosing not to have sex with her. And they explain it in episode 6 as to why. But I don't know if we're there yet, Beth. So,
but he's having sex with, he would have sex with other people and he just doesn't care if they die, kind of thing. He cares too much about her.
It's not really about that his sex is so powerful that he kills people. They have sex and don't kill people.
Right.
The thing is that they're mated. He's never mated before. So the mating ritual has a drinking from the heart vein thing going on.
Yeah, even that is a little bit later. It's the fact that because they're mated, his draw to her is way stronger than normal. So Matthew has been hesitant because he knows once he mates with her, he is not going to be able to let her go at all.
Yeah.
And, you know, he still kind of wants to give her a chance to walk away if she so chooses. So it's totally his, he is choosing not to do this thing with her without explaining to her why he is choosing not to do this thing with her.
So he knows nothing about women after centuries and centuries as a vampire.
Apparently.
You can't withhold the D.
Even the explanation in episode 6 did not make sense to me. I was like,
yeah,
no. After 1,500 years, aren't you mature enough to be like, to like have this conversation with her and not have your father force you to have it?
Yeah, Therese just said that Lachey is totally right. She is. It's the mating bond. He's trying to hold off on cementing the mating because it will become even more possessive. So yeah, there's, and they don't explain that part even in episode 6. Andy just said he doesn't want to bind her to him permanently, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really where it is. And he really just doesn't talk about it. In fact, when Philippe, tells her when they talk and Philippe is like, I'm going to let this cat out of the bag, Matthew is super embarrassed. He's not even really like, it doesn't seem to me like he's worried for Diana's safety. Like if, you know, again, Twilight lore, Edward doesn't want to have sex with Bella because he's worried that his sex will kill her. Matthew's more like, what if she doesn't want me? Like, you know, she wants this, but she's not going to want who I am. And I won't be able to be away from her. So he's embarrassed. He's kind of mortified, I think.
Well, Matthew is carrying a lot of self-hatred, a lot of guilt over, you know, things that have happened in the past. And despite Diana saying, I love you, I always love you, I'm the one for you, you're the one for me, and all of this, he's still, you know, it's like he can't accept it.
Well, probably because it's really lame. Every time she says it, it's like super lame. She sounds like a juvenile.
Yes, absolutely.
I just wish the show would have explained that a little bit more. Like it was literally over in 2 lines.
Yeah.
He says, this is why we can never be truly mated because of the blood rage. And she's like, oh, do you think I would ever leave you? And then that's it. Like if they could have gone more into the, like Matthew wanting her to have a chance to leave now that she finds out all this stuff about him, that would have been one thing, but it was so fast.
Yeah. And he could have been having that conversation with a bunch of different people along the way. He could have had it with Isabeau. He could have had it with Kit. He could have had it with Gallowglass. He could have had, you know, like he could have been having this combo with Marcus even, like this whole time. And he's never talked about it. It's kind of weird.
Therese can't have it with Marcus yet. Marcus didn't know before he left that he had, you know, the issue, the blood rage thing. So he couldn't have it with Marcus.
But Therese just said she agrees they don't do a good job explaining in this show. And also there's no going back for Matthew either once the mating is complete. He'll not be able to let her go even if she wanted to leave him. So I get it. But again, the show doesn't tell us that. So that's dumb. The witch that Philippe calls or doesn't call to come in and test Diana, Champier. What did we think of this scene?
The first time I watched it, I forgot that the witch shows up kind of on his own. So I had been thinking that Philippe actually brings the witch to try and test Diana. So I was really upset about it at first, and then I rewatched it a second time. and realized, okay, Philippe didn't call this guy, but
he allowed him.
He allowed him. And did they explain, like, did the witch sense Diana? Like, why did Philippe take him up to her? Like, did he know that the guy was going to try to take her memories? Like, why did Philippe lie and say that she didn't remember who she was or where she was from? None of that really made sense.
This is a change from the book. He did call him in the book, and the sequence of things in the book is different. So I think maybe they lost a little bit in translation when they did these scenes and everything. But yes, like you're saying, in this case, Philippe did not call him. He just sensed a powerful witch around them. And I really don't know what Philippe was thinking, besides the fact that he wanted to keep his family safe and he didn't quite trust her yet.
Yeah, and I think he tells Matthew, I wanted to see if she could protect herself because she knows so much. So if witches get a hold of her, is she going to be able to withstand what they do to her to protect us? Which is finally a good explanation, something that makes sense. But I was surprised that she had to kind of Jedi her way, like she Luke Skywalkered her way out of that situation when Matthew comes in the door and she goes for his knife. And couldn't she just get that guy off with the same magic, that shield that she used to push Matthew out of her bedroom? Like, it would have been just as heightened emotion. And how come she has no no shield magic, wind magic, whatever that was in that instance? She just has the Jedi lightsaber trick.
Or even when, like, Juliet was attacking her in season 1, like, she does the whole, like, Diana's flaming bow and arrow thing. I didn't understand, like, why is she not able to fight back? Like, the whole point of her magic was, even when she was bound, she could still call upon her magic to protect her. But she just, like, force pulled a knife and stabbed him. I wish it would have been her magic protecting herself. And I don't remember how she kills him in the book. So maybe it was better there.
And I liked it because it was like the visual of the blood dripping down her hand and how like visceral it was and how it was like a conscious choice that she was making rather than just like her magic coming out of her. I thought it was more impactful to see her like make the physical choice to defend herself. And also I thought it was a good, like it harkened back to Louisa where it was like, I'm gonna take care of my damn self. Like, you know, and I liked it. I thought it was two strong women, just awesome guys in this episode. I liked it.
I was fully great with her killing him. Like she needed to get him off of her. I just was wondering, I couldn't remember how he died in the book and why that was the choice. But you're right. It does make a better like visual picture for her to like have to stab him because she's killed Juliet. And again, Juliet, that was all, you know, magic-y and not something she really controlled.
I think also her magic is still kind of uncontrollable. It's not like she's had a lot of lessons, you know, from Goody and all of them yet. So I think she's still trying to figure it out, and whatever she can do is what happens in the moment and everything. But what I did notice is that when Matthew heard her screaming, you know, he was downstairs like in the courtyard or whatever, and he just started running. There was no vampire speed. Like, why? You know, even when he ran, you know, was stepped inside the door and saw what was happening, he still just started running. I was like, where is the vampire speed?
I mean, it's not like vampire speed is a rough CGI. You just speed up the tape. I mean, like, it's not hard. I mean, I think I can do it in iMovie now. I'm like so good at editing shit. I could do vampire speed right now. Anyway, I don't know why they didn't do it, but I love it. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say it would have been kind of cool if instead of stabbing him, if she'd done like that reverse aging thing like she did to the apple in episode 1, like if she had just like drained the life out of him, that would have been kind of cool too.
Yeah, she has lots of options. She could have drowned him. You know, she could have waterboarded him right there with her wrist, but she didn't. But it did make for a great visual for the end and for the beginning of season 6 or episode 6. Like Andy just said, I did like how episode I can't speak. Episode 6 started because she stabbed him. Yeah, so she's all drippy. Matthew's got to take it. Julie said in the book she stabs him with the knife she has in her stocking. Thank you, Julie. Since that is the case, Jediing Matthew's knife, better choice. So I'm down for those. So let's talk about episode 6. Again, we're in it right now. It begins with Diana shaken from having killed this witch who also tried to take all of her memories. So she's again got a major trauma happening to her. And she's chatting with Philippe, and he's figuring out a little bit about what's going on. And what I found interesting about that particular conversation was how Diana looked a little gleeful that Philippe figured out that he's dead. I mean, she was totally fine with the fact that this man just realized, I'm not going to live forever. I'm going to not make it.
Is that when he sees the ring and he figures out like, oh, Isabeau wouldn't have given you this if she did look like she was gloating a little bit.
Yeah.
I would gloat too. You're basically God. If you go into the past and you know when people die, the power would go straight to my head. There's no way. I'd be like, you're out. This is how. Let me tell you about it.
Especially if they were like a bitch. Like Philippe is basically a bitch to her. So like if she could be like, I'd be like that too. Yeah. But it's a great scene. Like just the simple fact that she has that ring on and he sees it and touches it and knows what it means, you know, it's excellent.
I don't remember. Did the ring come into play because he needed something to get into the past? Is that why she gave it to her? I can't remember how Isabeau gave it to her.
That's not why she gave it to her. She actually gave it to her so that when they saw Philippe, which Isabeau, I guess, figured they would eventually, he would know that she, was okay, will like Diana or was okay with Diana's relationship with Matthew. Because if you'll recall in the episode, they keep saying that she's off in Trier hunting witches or doing witch trials and stuff. So everyone knows Isabeau hates witches. She does not like them. This is her way of, letting Philippe know that this witch, we like her.
So I thought she didn't like witches because they killed Philippe. So she's always just hated witches. And we knew that already? Okay.
She got
Diana.
Go ahead.
Oh, she didn't remember to put it on until literally just before that scene.
Yeah, so I don't know where was it.
It was like in a little pouch, like right before the witch and Philippe come in. She like kind of like has this realization and she runs to the pouch and remembers to put it on. So she wasn't wearing it when they first meet Philippe.
I thought she was like getting out her birth control or something. Like she like opened this little canister. I was like, oh, good. She remembered. Like go in the past, take your meds, and it was the ring.
Why? Birth control? She doesn't even need it. Why?
Yeah, she's not getting laid.
And she couldn't get pregnant even if she wanted to. Vampires don't make babies.
So you think.
But she's the goddess, like Diana, fertility, motherhood. She's 100% getting pregnant. Sorry.
Speaking of the goddess, she's got like a pact with the goddess that she's going to have to like pay up. We've yet to see the pay up happen, I don't think. I really liked finally in 6 episodes, they do a juxtaposition of the current time and the past time, and they work in concert with one another. It's the first time they've really done it and done it well. And you see it when Philippe is actually considering writing to Isabeau. That's when Marthe comes in and she's like, something's wrong with the witches. And you get that hilarious scene where Em and Sarah are like moving around a room like idiots. But it finally is that like as Philippe is considering what he's trying to say and trying to write to Isabeau, the energy in the room in the current time is changing. And so the past is changing. I loved it. I love that they went through the whole episode with that thread. And I wish they did it all the time.
I liked that as well. But I don't understand. She changed history a couple of times there. So the letter changed history because he wrote something and then it showed up in the future. She changed history by changing up the witch map. Why don't they just tell him, hey, don't get captured by some Nazis? Like, what's the worst that can happen? It's not like the future is that great. It's not like, no one can have babies. The covenant's falling apart. Like, just save your dad's life. See what happens.
I don't know. Why didn't Jamie and Claire just stab Bonnie Prince Charlie? I don't know.
I was going to say, I feel like Outlander already proved that for plot purposes, you can't change major things like that.
I mean, we also have, remember how I said when they were doing the miniatures and how they should have been showing Marcus looking for, Matthew and Diana in the past and not finding anything. And then like once those miniatures are finished, he sees it, it pulls up on the online on this, auction or whatever. That kind of shit is my jam. They should have been doing that all along. It works super well. It also makes it more, it's the magic of that moment. Like that's the thing that makes what's happening with them magical. And I don't think that it lost its emotional impact at all without it. But this was just a really good moment for that part of it, the magic-y part of it. Like they should have just been doing it all along. That's all I have to say. I've been talking too much about it.
I really love that part. Just, her final discovery of it and, opening, and that was wonderful. And I like the way they portrayed it. But I have to say, we're in the second, witch season now with M still wearing that cap. It's driving me nuts. Valerie Pettiford, I love her, especially in Half and Half when she's Big Dee and she's fabulous. And that doggone hat is driving me. Can she please take it off? Can she please take it off in the hobo gloves? Okay. I
mean, how cold is it in Septour, honestly? I mean, I know it's probably an unattractive wig. I mean, she has great hair in real life. And I'm sure she looks at M's wig and she's like, no, that is not working for what I want to look like. But the cap is not much better. I agree. But I wanted to talk about Philippe and Isabeau in these moments as we're talking about the notes, because there was one thing that I thought we've talked about a lot, and that's the fact that Isabeau is so old. She was cast to be so old. And even James Purefoy is probably significantly younger than Lindsay Duncan. But this worked for me because the impact of the fact that Isabeau is alone for eternity worked because she's a woman in like the prime, her elder years. And if it had been a beautiful 30-something woman, you would have thought, oh, well, she's got time to find someone else, or she has time to move on. Even though they're vampires and they're eternal, something about the way their age, just that was the first time that I was like, this makes sense. This really super works emotionally. Not just as a shortcut for Matthew's mom being older than Matthew, but that it works as a visual cue that she is emotionally tied to this man that she'll never have again and she'll never have another. It really, really worked for me.
I also think it kind of maybe shows that things have been very difficult for her. Maybe even having to watch Philippe die in the way that he did, as Matthew explains later and everything. Maybe it caused her to age. It seems like you can see like all of the things that are happening in the future, the way the creatures are shifting and things that once aren't working quite the same way anymore. And maybe it's affecting her too.
Yeah. What I also thought was really great about this scene is you never see Philippe and Isabeau together. He does the voiceover of the letter while she's holding it, but there was like chemistry there. You really believed that they had been in love, and the chemistry was palpable across the centuries, which is just really great acting and pretty good directing too, to make me cry over something that I knew was going to happen and had been anticipating all episode. So it was good. That was really excellent in terms of how they portrayed that and how well they seemed connected. It was great. The only thing I wish is I wish the direction had been more clear that they were in the same exact spot. She's in his office reading it, and I wish you could see through the grate or see the checkerboard of the big room behind her or something. You know what I mean? Like make it more evident that they're exactly in the same spot while he's writing and she's reading. I think that would have been really beautiful. Maybe cheesy to some of you, but I thought it would have been good.
I was able to tell they were in his office. I mean, they had changed it quite a bit across the centuries, but I mean, I had no complaints about the scene, and I don't cry, and I was just, the tears were pouring down. And like you said, they had such great chemistry, even though you never see them in the same scene together. It was so beautiful.
It was. Which is why it sucks that that's not happening with Matthew and Diana. Segue, Andy just said the two of them with that letter was way hotter than all of the Matthew and Diana stuff in the whole episode. Why is that? We're talking about the emotion of two secondary characters who aren't on screen together and how good it worked. And yet there's a wedding and first time sex and all of this mating business going on with Matthew and Diana. And it just, something about it just kind of, it's part of it's beautiful and part of it just isn't enough. What do you guys think?
I thought the wedding worked. I thought that like her thing was amazing and so beautiful and kind of had that like wow moment. But then he was like, they panned to what he was seeing and she was like way up off the stairs. Like he could not see her. Like his face was lighting up at just a blank wall of rocks. She was very far away.
He's a vampire. He has vampire sight. I mean, I know you don't know that because of the way this show does things, but he can see her.
Yeah, fair point. I did like how they, like the vows were really powerful. Like my body, I gave you my body. I thought that was really like a cool way that they did that, even though they keep pronouncing his name Matthews, which I found amusing. But the sex, like, I know that's probably what, like, it's probably what my face looks like when I'm orgasming too, like if we're being honest. But I was laughing. I was laughing so hard because she looked like she was in pain. Like she's like it was a bad O face, real bad. Real bad.
I wish there had been a little bit of evidence that like their vampire mating bond had been a little more completed. Like, because I don't know if it was before or after, but like when she's with Philippe and she kind of starts to like glow and sparkle. I wish there had been a little bit of that during the sex scene to show like, okay, they're really mated now, but it was just awkwardly shot sex. So it wasn't the great payoff I was kind of hoping it would be.
I mean, I think all sex on screen is fairly awkward. I think that making out is hot. And then once you're doing it, you have a purpose. There is a goal. And that goal is not meant to be attractive to other people as they watch. I mean, I just don't think it's cool. Like it's always in some way awkward to do a close-up of someone's orgasm face. That is an awkward thing to have to see. And it never works. And I've never seen one on a show like this that I'm like, yeah, that was right. That was right on. That's always awkward. Show more making out or show more pillow talk afterwards. And I think it would have been cool if Matthew had more movement.
Also more emotion. How long has it been since Matthew has been with anyone in this way? If he's been trying not to mate with anyone or whatever, I don't know. It's not like they explain it, but you would think once he's finally married to Diana, the woman he loves and is chosen and all of that good stuff, that he would be a little bit more enthusiastic about getting to this part. And
also, he'd be on top. Like, at least some of the time, he'd be like, flip over. I need to move. Like, that's kind of like, do it. Like, is he going to break the bed? Is he going to throw in Edward and Twilight?
Animalistic, right? He's a vampire. Animalistic.
Like
Those instincts needed to kick in. Yeah, I agree.
He should have mounted her at some point.
It did really focus pretty much solely on her face, and he was just an afterthought. When you think about, like, she's probably had sex more recently than he has, and this is supposed to be his big moment, it doesn't make sense. You're right.
All of the sex scenes that they've had have focused on her face. I mean, granted, they've all been him going down on her, but that's what they've been doing. And I mean, maybe he's meant to be tortured or something. I don't know. But again, I think a man directed this episode. I don't know who wrote it. But again, they haven't been talking a lot about this being a show from the female gaze in any shape or form. So it's just generalized Hollywood nonsense with the way that they film sex scenes, I guess.
I have to say, go ahead, Heidi.
Someone mentioned earlier something about like the mating bond takes like you had to bite from her heart, like the aorta or something. That
We
didn't
haven't
happen.
gotten there yet.
Okay.
We haven't gotten there yet. But what I was going to say was episode 6 for me, I don't know. I was wondering, I don't know a lot about writers and directors and all that kind of stuff, but it just didn't bring together everything that I needed it to bring together as a book reader from Philippe. I love James Purefoy. Don't get me wrong. He was just missing some of the charisma that I was looking for. He seemed, and maybe it was because of his clothing as well, he seemed very gray, and he didn't have that charm and slyness and wit that I was looking for in Philippe. I don't know how the rest of you felt about him. And I know James Purefoy can bring that off because I was ready to follow Joe Carroll in his cult in the following. So I mean, you know, I know he can do it. And then, like, you know, the wedding, I thought there should have been more servants or people from the village there to kind of make it festive, with Philippe going around singing, you know, which is what was kind of, you know, put in the book. It just seems like, and I understand that they can't do everything in the book. I love the show. I think they're doing fine. But I think they missed a lot of the emotion, things that would kind of make you feel great. Besides Isabeau and Philippe, you know, that connection, I kind of feel like we missed everything else in this episode, at least.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, I remember very little from the second book, but what I remember is Philippe and how he was larger than life. And I kept having to like remind myself and like James Purefoy did a great job and he's very magnetic. But when you think about the impression of Philippe from the book, it fell massively short. And that's not James Purefoy's fault necessarily. All of it was so rushed. You never really get a chance to figure out Philippe and realize just kind of the breadth of his lifetime and his power and his magnetism. So they really fell short on that. You really don't get to know who Philippe really is from the books.
Right. Go ahead, Heidi.
I was going to say I completely disagree. As someone who doesn't know Philippe at all from the books, he was great. I thought like that he's probably my favorite character that I've seen on the whole show. I thought he had tons of depth and dimension and brought a ton to it. And I understand Matthew better now. I understand Isabeau better now. I felt like it was exactly what his character needed to give. I understand I didn't get the whole like totality of his personality or what he brings to Matthew or the whole world building. But for the show's purposes, I think he did exactly what he needed to do.
Yeah. And my impression of Philippe is the same. I mean, I guess it's the same. Like I obviously like I have in my mind what I thought he was like, but I thought James Purefoy was playing all of the cards. He was, you know, running the game. He was running the chess game for all of them. And you could see it on his face. You could tell in what he was saying. Like you could even tell in like the fact that he's giving her the keys to the larder or whatever. And he was like, I thought you might want it, you know, and then, oh, we don't lock up books here. I mean, like every little move had, I thought, 5 or 6 undercurrents to it. I mean, even what I thought was the dumbest part of the episode, which was when they went to the Temple of Diana and the white stag showed up from Narnia, whatever the heck that was. I was like, still, he's playing a game. Like they're just experiencing this time with Philippe and like getting engaged. But Philippe is playing like a longer game. And then the blood vow happens. And in my mind, that's the scene from book 2 that I really remember really well because I thought it was super emotional and really lovely that he's protecting her in this way and giving her this, you know, welcome into his home and his hearth, more so than even what Matthew has. Like she's a de Clermont more than Matthew is at this point. Like once he gives her that blood vow, it's solid. And I loved that scene. And I think that he did a whole lot with writing that was quick and not as fleshed out as you would want it to be as a book reader. But still, I think he did a really good job. And I think it came through on the show.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think it was James Purefoy at all. And I think for what they gave him, he did fine. I think it's probably the writing or maybe even the direction, and I don't know for sure. But I did just think he was missing a little of the charisma and the charm that, you know, was kind of, you know, shown throughout the book. So.
Yeah. Andy just said that they deprived us of the line where Diana says, he won't be alone at the end at his death, and that she would be with him. And that's unforgivable. It is a good line from the book that we didn't get. So there is like it's rushed. The love between Philippe and Diana, and the reason he gives her the blood vow, and the reason he wants them to marry, and the reason he writes the letter to Isabeau, all that felt a little rushed in favor of him getting Matthew to the point of blood rage to have that conversation. So that sword fight and all of that was the focus and kind of the nexus of episode 6, and not the more familial ties that he's making with Diana.
I thought that the reason that he liked her was that, like, the reason that she won him over was how powerful she was when she started glowing and all of that. Like, that's all it took was for him to be like, oh, the prophecy, you're gonna be a big deal. I'm a true believer now. That's what I didn't think there was any actual love. It was more just like, okay, you're gonna be a badass, so you can be part of my family.
Which is why it wasn't written well. Like, yes, she does firework Diana, and Philippe's like, oh, wow, this is more than just he brought home a stray witch. This is a real thing that's happening to our family, and I need to be a part of it. That's going on. But there's also love there, and we just didn't get to see it because they didn't have enough time to grow into it.
While I loved the bits at the end where, like, he gives her the money and says, like, the women of this family handle their own finances, and all the sweet moments between them, I liked it, but it definitely felt unearned because we just didn't get time. And I don't remember how long they're there in the book, but it happened so quickly where suddenly, like, she respects him, she likes him. At the beginning of this episode, like, he literally let a witch in who was going to steal her memories. And by the end, she's his daughter. I feel like Philippe needed a little bit more time with Diana to just make that feel believable.
To me,
there were great moments, really heartwarming moments, but unearned.
To me, that read more like he's like a man who's seen nothing new around the sun until her. And he was like, I made up my mind, put the little round thing on your head, and like, we're good. Like, we're in, you are in. Like, he didn't need time to build anything. He made the choice because he's nothing new under the sun, like he said. And so he knew what he wanted to do. That's how I read that.
I have a question though. How did she do the glow? I mean, I remember she did it because she was very emotional, like in the first season when she danced with Matthew, right? She started glowing. But if she's still so uncontrolled with her magic, I was like, how? How is she doing this? You know, it seems like she's controlling this one thing when she can't control anything else right now. How, you know, it didn't make sense to me.
It reminded me of the Rowan tree, right? Was not that same kind of glow that she did whenever she pulled all the weaves and actually like came into her power?
Yeah, because they show the threads all around her as she's having the conversation with him. And it feels like she pulled them into herself and then did something and sent it back out. And I think it was a power move, right? Like, he's kind of giving her the business, and she finally just like stands there and she's like, I'm not going to let this be the way that this conversation goes. And so I'm going to show you what I can really do. And I think it was just a generalized feeling of, I'm going to get the upper hand on this, and here's how I'm going to do it. Like when I really get pissed at somebody, and so I go and have a conversation, but I turn my voice memo on and put it in my pocket first. It's in my pocket and I'm the only one that knows it's there, but it makes my conversation perfect. Like, all of a sudden I am a heightened arguer. I can like totally destroy you bit by bit, but in ways that are just pleasing, because I'm going to modulate my voice because I know it's there for posterity. You know what I mean? That's what she was doing. It was all inside. He didn't know about it, but she let it go, and it was just like perfect and calm and cool. And no, I don't record all my conversations, only if you're a dick and I'm planning on it being a bad one. So anyway, we didn't talk about the fight between Philippe and Matthew a whole lot, but the blood rage comes out. And it makes sense to me that Philippe is like pestering Matthew and goading him into blood rage. But I feel like it wasn't quite the right tone to take. Like, why aren't you fighting me? Instead of, why wouldn't Philippe be like, I don't know, threatening Diana or something like that. Like, or he seems like he's pestering about how he dies. And that just seems like the wrong tack to take. But maybe he knows better and I'm an idiot. I don't know. What did you guys think?
It seemed like he was just insulting him into a blood rage. Like, I don't understand how Matthew lost his cool that. And I mean, maybe it's because of the tension about seeing Philippe again and knowing that he had killed him. But I was like, Philippe just throws a couple insults and Matthew's in a blood rage. Like, Diana isn't at risk. You would think Matthew would have gone into the blood rage, like when Diana was, having her memory stolen by the witch. And it wasn't lit very well. And I was sometimes struggling to know, like, who was talking. Like, was Philippe talking or was Matthew talking?
I just thought it was a very lame way to get him to be upset. Why would he be upset that you keep pestering him about how you died? That doesn't seem right.
I agree with Emma. Emma says Matthew's blood rage seemed kind of weak, for lack of a better word. I agree.
When she said not compared to the blood rage we saw in the present time where that guy is going to town on that poor student in Oxford. You're very right. I mean, I think that's because Matthew's containing it, right? Like, it's coming to the surface and he's having to push it down. Look at my hand. You know what I mean? Like, it's coming out and he's having to push it down. And that's why it's like his eyes are getting bloodshot and his teeth are getting all rabid, but he's not in blood rage. It's just coming to the surface. But it doesn't really, Diana should have seen something like that before. And so it's interesting that it's the way Philippe gets her to know that blood rage is a thing, because it doesn't really look that crazy. And so then at that point, he's like, this is what you needed to see. And she's like, what? His eyes got bloodshot? What? You were strangling him. Like, it just doesn't look like anything.
And it was coincidental that Diana even showed up. Like, she only heard servants talking about it, and that's when she went to find them. Like, Philippe didn't even really set up to confront Diana with the truth. It seems like she just shows up there just because servants were talking about it.
Yeah.
The servant said, "There's a fight." It was like in high school, like, here, fight in the courtyard, like, fight. There's a
We
fight.
should have heard fight coming from the courtyard.
Right. No, but I was distracted that whole time. One, I didn't understand that he was trying to get the blood rage to show up, I guess, to show Diana. Like, that was totally lost on me.
Right.
But also, the reason that Matthew was in the courtyard was because he was just going to leave he was just going to leave Diana there with his, like, kind of evil dad at that point to go to Bohemia. Like, I have an errand to run, he said. Like, hey, Dad, I have an errand to run.
No, he was getting their horses.
Okay,
ready.
That was not clear to me.
Yeah.
I thought he was just going to take off and leave her behind.
He meant the errand for Queen Elizabeth that he and Diana were both going to go on to Bohemia. So yeah, that's not super clear, but that's what he was. He was just like, screw this. We saw Philippe. We did our duty. We're out, or whatever. So, I mean, I just looked down at my notes to see if we talked about everything that I thought I wanted to talk about. And we did. I said the giant stag was like Narnia. But I had this one thing that says, before you say yes to marry a guy, maybe make sure he's going to lay pipe. Like, she has no idea when she says yes, whether or not he's ever going to have sex with her.
And he didn't even, like, he was forced into getting married to her. It wasn't even like he really had a choice. He was like, you guys are getting married tomorrow. Most unromantic thing ever.
Yeah. And like, it definitely seemed like it was okay, we're married now. Now we can have sex. Like, it was like, I don't know. They could have explained that.
Like, if he had said to her all of the things he was thinking about forever and how he was going to be once they mated, and how, I know she says the thing about, like, in 60 or 70 years, I'm going to die. And he never says, I won't be able to live without you, or I can just make you like me, or any of this stuff that you would expect him to say. And then she says yes to marrying him. And now he's okay with all of that overprotective mating stuff. It's all just not working. It's not coming up to the surface enough to overcome the really pretty set or the really pretty Elizabethan bell ringing guy and the shot down into the village. It's not over. The romance is not that stuff doesn't compensate for the lack of what's going on with the two of them.
But
And I don't.
No, go ahead, Jana.
I don't need to see them like giggling while they try to tear each other's clothes off. Like I need to see them having conversations about forever and what this means for their mating bond and what this means for their relationship. And they're just skipping all those conversations. So it feels like their relationship isn't very deep, actually.
Yeah. Brett just asked in the books, Diana was a virgin. No. Before Matthew was supposed, I don't know. She was not a virgin. She had boyfriends. Yeah.
As someone who reads a lot of vampire romance, I just finished one today. The first thing I would ask, like, I'd be less worried about the sex thing because, like, they're a vampire. They've been around for like a couple thousand years. They probably know what they're doing. But I would be worried about, like, so you're going to turn me? Am I going to die before you? Am I going to get old? Are you going to get old? Like, how is that conversation just didn't, at least not that I've seen. Did we discuss it last season? I don't remember. No. Just nothing. And then also, she had the audacity to compare little Jack Blackfriar to his son, his real life son that died. And she was like, oh, I've kind of seen that. His actual son. Oh, it's terrible.
That was pretty bad. That was bad. Yeah, I think there's something in the book about her witchiness making her, she doesn't have the desire that like we would have as vampire, like your vampire romance normally has, where they want to be a vampire, or the Bella Swan syndrome, right? She doesn't have that. She doesn't have any desire to be immortal or any desire to be like him, because she's not him, she's a witch. And so I don't even know what the lore is if you could turn a witch into a vampire or, whatever. It changes in book 3, but for books 1 and 2, that's kind of where she lands, is that it's not on her radar. She doesn't think about it. So that's why it's not in this show. I think. I mean, if I'm wrong, somebody tell me.
My vanity would not allow that.
No.
0 chance.
I'd be like, you get to be that? And I just got to like do the regular Botox stuff? I mean, who's going to do something about my neck? I need a facelift. And like, how do you like gracefully become Lindsay Duncan and he's still Matthew Good? It doesn't work. Therese just said Matthew has no desire to turn her either. Well, thanks, bud. That's terrible. Yeah, he doesn't say he wants her forever either, really. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, but Matthew also knows that vampires can die. So maybe he's, I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
They die.
Hasn't he
beautiful
said before that like once Diana's gone, he has no more reason to live? Like, hasn't he said that either in a voiceover or to someone else, that he basically plans to off himself once Diana dies? Has he said that? I feel like he said that out loud.
I don't think so. He tells Kit, I am nothing without Diana, but that's it. That's the only thing I can think of that he's said that's like that.
Okay, because I had that, like, when they were having that conversation, when she's like, I'll be gone in 60 or 70 years. I fully expected him to say, like, yeah, and I will too, because I'm not going to live without you. And I feel like I had heard him say that before, but maybe I was just.
I think that's just. Have you read Twilight fan fiction that I just sent you some? That is a major trope in Twilight fan fiction, but I don't remember it from these books or this show. But Therese says he sort of indicates his life will be over, and Emma said she got that impression too. Guys, I think you might be conflating it with other vampire lore. I don't remember it from any of this stuff.
I've read too much vampire stuff.
Yeah.
Too much fanfic and too much vampire novels.
Therese says it's vague, but he does imply it. I feel like the only implication I've seen is when he says, I'm nothing without Diana to Kit. But I may be wrong. Maybe he said it more because I do tend to tune out their interludes with each other that are supposed to be romantic because I find them boring. Full circle. He does say, now I have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Yeah, I think he says something to that to that end. And then they have the whole prophecy nonsense, right? I mean, there is something going on with the Shadow Prince and her and the alchemy couple and all of that stuff. And so he knows there's more going on as well. There's a lot going on with the Book of Life. So it's more than just your regular vampire, lover situation, vampire mate situation. So there's more going on, and maybe that has to do with it. I don't know. Maybe we'll learn about it more next week. What, Heidi?
Here's a question. Why didn't they just go back to the future and tell Daddy Philippe to find the book for them and just stick it in his library? And when it's vibrating, there's the Book of Life in your library.
I kind of think that that's what her dad did and why it's in the Bodleian.
Okay, that makes sense.
Kind of. Yeah. Andy just said, are they going to go back to England? Are they skipping the familiar? Next week, they're going straight to Bohemia. They will go back to England, but not before they go to Bohemia, like it is in the book.
So the stag was not her familiar? That was just Diana? Oh, I was sure. It was like Harry Potter's like Patronus, like the white stag. That's not it?
Was the stag, is it Diana with a stag in the little statue that Sophie has? And
She's
so it's
riding.
kind of, okay, so it's kind of like the goddess Diana's familiar is the stag. Okay.
I mean, I get why we see the stag. I also rolled my eyes very hard when we saw the stag. It's just too much. It's gigantic. And they hunt the white stag in the Chronicles of Narnia. And
then the stag just walks off. Like it doesn't disappear mystically. It just walks away.
It's meant to be real stag. It's there. The goddess brings it to bless their union. It's just too much. I mean, she's spoken to the goddess. Why does the goddess need to come to her in a gigantic, unrealistic animal form? I just don't care. I hate stuff like that.
I did love the ruins though. I'm a real whore for ruins. So it was really, I really liked that part, like just the setting and Philippe saying like when I was a child and being like, oh my gosh, like Philippe was there thousands of years ago when that temple was, newly built.
There is some irony with being like, can I have a lock of your hair for your maidenhead? I was like, that ship has sailed, buddy. That maidenhead is several centuries in the future and gone like the wind.
Yeah. They kept it in a baby shoe. I don't know what we're talking about anymore. Anybody know what that means? I can't wait to see how they portray the familiar. Yeah, that's going to be pretty cool. Anyway, it's a lot coming down the pike in the next couple of episodes, and we will be here next Sunday night. Thank you guys for joining us. And I mentioned it earlier, but we have a podcast now. It's not just hangouts that we've taken and put on the podcast. There's new content. There'll be new content coming at you tomorrow morning that you have not heard. So please go download it, subscribe, rate it, review it, even if you're not going to listen to it, because you guys already know us. So it would be nice to be in a new space and to have some people say that they like us. Thank you. It's just called the Cool Table Podcast. Go find it. It's really cute. And thank you guys for joining us. We will be back here next week talking about episode 7. And after that, I have no foreknowledge of what's happening. I've only seen through episode 7. I don't like not knowing things. But maybe I'll reread the book between now and then. So I'll be extra smart. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. I hope you had a lovely one. And we will see you next week.